So today what we're going to do is this is the first in a playlist for a project that I'm working on. I am going to be building an online role-playing game engine that's designed to have either single player or groups of people go through it. So I'm really going to try and focus on recreating the tabletop adventure type of play. So what it's going to be is hopefully you can come in by yourself, do a little familiarization tutorial, and then join up with a group of people at the tavern and go off to the main town board and go on some adventures. And then it'll teleport you to different areas, or you wander around the countryside, or whatever. All that could be flushed out by the developer. In this case, it'll be me flushing out the first version as I beta test the product and work with it. However, the idea is I want to build the tools to make the game. And what I want to do is I've had some pretty good luck playing around with JavaScript, HTML, PHP, and database integrations. So at my work, I do quite a bit of database and PHP work. So I'm pretty good with that aspect of things. In past years, the years of long ago, I used to do quite a bit of manual web development. And then I used products such as Go Live and Dreamweaver, and some other ones, some other third-party ones. Macromedia, I don't know if you remember too much about Macromedia before Adobe bought them, but they had some pretty good ones out there too. But anyway, I used to do some of that work. So I could program a little bit of JavaScript. I could program a little bit of HTML. I could program quite a bit of PHP. So I'm pretty good at that. So what I'm trying to learn now is the new HTML5, which has something called HTML Canvas, which gives you quite a bit of creativity. Combined with CSS, you can do a bunch of styles and GUI work, things like that. And then combined with JavaScript and some Java backend frameworks, there's a heck of a lot you can do now with OpenGL and OpenGPU. So what I've done is this is the first one in the tutorial list. I'm going to give you a general overview of what I've got happening right now. And then what I'm going to do is in the next couple of episodes, I'm going to just break it down into each component and how to use each component as I proceed and work through. Now, this obviously won't be the final version. I mean, this is early alpha. Like, we're not even close to beta mode. Like, this is alpha mode. I'm hoping to be able to get into beta mode this year with it. But for right now, I'm just working on getting everything to work good. Now, I'm going to switch over, and we're going to go to the screen capture to show you the engine. So what you can see in front of you is my web browser. I'm just going to open it up all the way here, full screen it. So you've got a web browser, and what we've got happening here is just a simple 3D plane. This is what happens when you load the engine from wherever it's web hosted, because this will be a web hosted technology, and as such, it's going to handle all the RTC ports, all the post ogre calls, all of the HTML calls. Everything's going to just happen through the web browser, so it could effectively take 99%, well, maybe not 99, maybe 95% of the network stack out of it. Now, you still have to be very considerate with your architecture designs and things as to how that's going to work. And we'll get into that in a minute when I show you the world grid. But we'll start here with just a basic overview of what I've got. So we've got this grid. I'm playing around with either having this here or not having this here. It really doesn't matter. It's just an overview grid. You can turn it off by default, turn it on. And then I've got this camera view that centers the camera in an isometric mode, look down view, much like Diablo 2-ish, because that's kind of the type of engine I want this to be. It's going to be like a 3D engine, but I want to be able to use either 3D assets or 2D assets. The reason being bandwidth. When you're streaming all these assets through a web portal, They don't live locally on your computer. So when you install something like World of Warcraft or any of these other big games, all those assets live in gigabytes and gigabytes on your hard drive. This isn't going to be that way. This will cache on your local hard drive, and I'm actually going to tell it to, I'm going to have it programmed so it actually goes and sets your cache bigger by default so that it can store more locally, like all the terrain files and the shader files and things. But that being said, generally speaking, web technology is delivered to you on the fly over the internet as you play. So that consideration is extremely important. When you get into streaming big levels with lots of trees and everything, you're not going to be able to pull off something that looks like Unreal Engine, at least not at scale. So you need to plan for that. So what I've planned for is making a world grid. And so I'm just going to go back. I'm going to exit that camera view. So this grid area, by default here, is just the default grid space that comes with the world grid, or not the world grid, with the Three.js backend. Sorry, and that's the framework part that I was getting to. What this references is a library called Three.js, which is a framework for JavaScript for 3D and 2D actually. But they've gone through all the work of creating this whole back-end framework that does a lot of the heavy lifting for you. You don't have to program how to create a mesh array. You don't have to program how the lights work. You don't have to program the transformables. They exist and you just reference them in a call to a JavaScript file. So you've got a huge amount of the work done for you, which allows for very rapid iteration. So that being said, the whole back end exists. Now it's just a matter of making the GUI, making the interactions, making the actual play window, setting up all the dynamics, setting up all the databases, all that sort of stuff. You still have to create all of that stuff. You just don't have to do the millions and millions of lines of code that tie it all together. That exists in the back end. You just have to do the millions of lines of code that make it happen visually in front of you. So with that being said, you can see here I've got this little north indicator happening. And I integrated that in as an overlay. But we'll start up here. So of course my little logo, my Dano engine, and my anthropomorphic golden doodle holding the gun ready to shoot. Nothing crazy. Down here is just a status window, status debug window. That's built in. And I've turned it on because when you're creating things, you need a debug window. Over here, the system menu. So we've got admin tools. In here, we can appendix the site, which basically, I'll just run that and show you. And we'll just say generate. And now what we've got is this whole list of how the entire site is set up. So I wrote this in here so that I could get a working copy of files, file locations, JavaScripts, PHPs, game assets, a working directory. Because what I can do is if I need to know how to tie something in, I can take this file and I can reference through it, or I can take it and feed it into Copilot and say to Copilot, hey, I want to make it so that this panel that does this function can have a separate file that references it and does this function. And I need to create a link to it. Where best should I put that link for functionality? And then Copilot will spit me out an answer, then I can go in and code it. Or if it's just a short block of code or something, I can even have Copilot write it, then I can copy and paste it in Visual Code, have it updated. Because I am not a AAA coder by any means, and with these new generative AIs that have come out, I can use them to help correct my code, suggest ways for me to code, and sometimes even write a code block that I can then edit in Visual Studio Code. So there's a lot of things out there, and a lot of people just hate AI for everything. I like it as a tool to help you do what you need to do, because not everybody knows how to do everything, and one person isn't a whole team. And when you're trying to make a product and you run into brick walls, or you run into bugs, you constantly have a problem, or like in my case, you often just miss a syntax error. a little extra X at the end of a command, or maybe I've got an extra space in there somewhere, or I forgot to put a closing bracket in, things like that. Those happen to me all the time, probably to other people too, because I'm pretty heavy on the keyboard, and sometimes things just don't work. AI catches it. So enough on AI, because that's how I use it. I use it as an aid to check my work and to suggest work paths when I'm stuck. But generally speaking, I kind of piece everything together that I need. So this has now generated that file for me, and I can close it. Now I can open it from that same menu, and then it just shows it to me in the big text. I don't need to show you that. Other tool that I have here is when you first install, you add your own texture files into the project, you will need to actually have them referenced in what's called a JSON file. This rebuilds your asset folder, sets up your terrain files. There will be other ones added to this list to rebuild as you add more artwork and more resources. Sorry, hiccup there. But just be aware that I've made simple code functions. I mean, this is literally like I think it's like a 10-line code. Basically, it just amends a JSON file and adds the information for the names and of the texture files and the normal files that go with them. So, no big deal, but that's where that's located. Edit the user guide. Here, I'll just pull up the user guide. So here's the user guide. And then down here, it's just welcome to the game engine. Getting started with your terrain index, etc., etc., etc. Yeah. Close the user guide down. But I built in a handy dandy little tool here where you can actually edit the user guide. And so I can create a new topic. I can put a name to it. I can set the order in the table of contents where it lives. I can then put in long text description, and I can upload pictures to it. Then I can save the topic, hit build the manual, and what it will do is it will update my user manual HTML file for me. So it's pretty simple. I wanted to include this feature because if anybody wants to expand upon this engine at a later date, or learn to use it, or have stuff specific for their game that they're building, here's an easy way for you to add that documentation. Because sometimes there's things you do once or twice a year, maybe. You don't need to do them very often. Like maybe adding a new guild or something, or a new feature or function. Well, you're gonna want to be able to update the documentation for it. Here it is. So anyway, we'll close that down. Don't need to go there. Then we've also got world settings. So this is sort of a placeholder at this point in time. It's not tied into the actual function yet because I haven't built a player interface for it to take effect to. But what this does is this lets you toggle on day and night cycle, day only, night only. Down here, you could change the time. You can go all the way up to 500 times faster. So if you're testing season changes or weather changes in certain areas and stuff, you'll be able to affect them here quite simply at a game setting level. So you could test with that, make sure everything's working, and then set it how you want, because maybe you actually want your game speed to run at, let's say, 50 times faster than normal. So you know that, instead of 300 or so let's say 100 times faster than normal, or somewhere around 80, 86 or 7. And then instead of taking a year to go by in game time, 3 months and a year goes by, right? So in 3 months you would have all 4 seasons or whatever you want. That brings us down to seasons: spring, summer, fall, winter. So right now the toggle's just on by default for just summertime, but you can turn on or off spring, turn on or off fall, on or off winter. Here you can change how many days long that's going to be in the course of a year. So because the reason behind it, I added this in, is because I was trying to think ahead of time, and I'm like, you know what? People might want to have all seasons, but maybe they want winter to be like way shorter than summer, or maybe they want just like summer to be most of the year and then have a really short winter season. Maybe they don't want a fall or a spring. So I've added in the abilities. Like you can go like that, and then you can set winter for 30, and you can go here and set summer to like 100 or something. So, oh, not 1200, but there you go, 120. So then there you go. You've got a significantly longer summer season and then you've got just 30 days for winter. And you save the settings and away you go. So anyway, that's the world settings so that you can just kind of control your overall clock speed and your seasons. Close that down. Over here then, we've done the user guide already. So I've included also a GDD plan, which is game design document planner. And this is actually my Danu planning software. But if we open that up, you can see here we can add blue. I can go to here, connect the dots, boom. Oh, if I actually make it connect, bang. And then you can add input, output, insert a PNG, remove an image. Over here you can add an information page. Then you can insert that information page into the document, and then the document will display it. You click on it, it opens a new tab and gives you more information. For more info on that, I'll do a design document one later on in the playlist to show you that. This is just a general overview of where I'm at with this system right now. And then you can change title, enter notes, do whatever you want, right? So like blue, we're gonna say starting town. And we'll go down here. Grassy plain with a small village. Okay, so something like that, right? And that's already in there, ready to go. You can also resize these. Maybe this one will go character creation. Choose a style to play. Right? And then maybe we want to drag in something down here. Maybe we got another area we want to attach to this. And we'll just put it here. And we're going to go here. Yeah, we'll just keep that one for now. We can add more later. Bring that down to here. If I can just hover over the blue light. My mouse is pretty sensitive right now for some reason. There we go. There we go. Move that there. Okay, blue, and then in there we'll say farmhouse adjacent to the town. Bang, and then we just need to expand this little box to make the text fit. I should probably adjust that code and make it auto wrap, but whatever. And then you can put details in down below, like quest to kill 3 chickens and pick corn. There. Anyway, you get the idea. And you can delete nodes, add more in points, out points, whatever, right? All that sort of stuff. So it's a basic planning. It's basically a node-based planner that you can use to, oh, the other thing was this one, group box. There. So we'll group those together. We'll say those are kind of the same area of the game, and those are grouped together. And then we could have also here, like we could do off that box, and we bring this orange one in just to show you. Oh. Bring this one over here. Bring this one here. Chicken quest. There you go. So anyway, just a really quick look at the planner, but you get the idea. This gives you a way to do your design document, and you can set up, you can tie images to it, extra supplemental pages. So you can have a link in here that opens another page that you create here. You can put a whole bunch of pictures, tasks, whatever in there. You can really break it out. So you can keep this pretty clean and break it out into other pages. So I won't waste any more time with that one. I'm just going to close that down. But then basically that's what I've got so far under the system menu. Now we'll get into the actual tools menu. So we're going to start with the world grid. So here's the world grid, and I'm just going to zoom out a bit here just to show you. I'm going to rotate a bit. You can see this thing goes way off into space. This is a 1,000 by 1,000 grid, and each one of these grids contains an area. This one is grassy 1, This one is scene test 2. This one here is my scene. So just kind of testing, playing around with different things and different effects. What these are is just PNG thumbnails of 1 hectare size terrain areas that you can work with. And so basically what you do is you paint your terrain into these adjacent areas, and what will happen is if you're, say you're here and you walk up this way, when you get close to this edge, what will eventually happen when we have a player client is it will load this next section for you, and then load this next section when you get closer to there. If you come closer to this side, it'll load this section, if there is one. I haven't quite figured out if there isn't one what to do yet. Just leave it black space or put some invisible barrier up or something. I'm not sure. I'll have to figure something out there, some way to work with it. The thing is that may be come down to a design decision for the person building the game. It may not be an engine question. It might be a designer question. We'll see. Anyway, I haven't implemented clicking to open on these yet. I just got them set up, so you can just pick a terrain area here, select an assignment, and then I'll just go. Let's add grassy one to that one again, and then we could save our grid world if we want, right? So now we've saved it. So if we go away from it, you can close here, or you can close by clicking on it here again. Now I'm going to open it again, and now we have that grassy one there again. So I don't actually need that there. I'm going to just go none, save game world. Okay, now by default, it starts on grid 499 by 499, or world coordinate 00. So I have it referenced both ways because the grid number is a good reference locally, and then the world coordinate will be referenced in the database later. I have them both visual so that while I'm troubleshooting and designing, they're there. I may not have the world coordinate there at the end of the day. It'll probably just be the grid coordinate for you. Easier for the player. You don't need to worry about both. But I need this here for designing and troubleshooting so that I can make sure that everything works. Okay, that being said, I'll hit this close button now. So again, you can turn grid lay on and off. This is I can close this, open that up, close that down. This is toggle lights on and off, which right now actually just toggles everything black because it turns all the lights off. Toggles it back on. Save button, that'll save a scene if you've got it open while you're working on it, because there's going to be different panes and areas to work on. It's not always in the terrain editor, so you're going to want to save the scene as you're doing things to it. And this just opens up the standard transform. There's move, rotate, and scale, which I actually haven't implemented those as draggables in the engine yet. I've been using toggles on the object properties, but we'll get to that in a minute. All right, we'll just toggle you back close again since I don't need you open right now. And next is the I'll just go with the ones I haven't filled out yet, just so you can see kind of what I'm doing. So you'll be able to design logic blocks, and those logic blocks you'll be able to attach to entities or scene objects. So this is just a panel right now. There will be entity logic, object logic, and then you'll just be able to take these things. There will be an select object here, an inspector, and you can drag them in and connect them like code blocks. There'll be pre-programmed logic that you can then add. And then if you need a new logic block, it'll be you create a new JavaScript. Maybe I'll add a button at the bottom or something that says create new logic block, and then you can put in your script or whatever you want. So that's the logic blocks. So the next one is going to be the generators. So generators are going to be things like particles, shaders, animations, and those will all be very similar. So by animations, it's like a windmill turning, or I don't know, something moving across the screen, or I don't know, things like that. I guess a windmill turning is the easiest one that comes to mind, or like a sawmill, or basically static props that need some animation for them. Shaders are just that, shaders, so like trees waving, you could use water rippling, fire particles, or flames flickering, lava, whatever. That's what shaders are. Particles will be particle effects and projectile things, stuff like that, flames, blasts, you know, magic effects, whatever, that'll be there. And again, there'll be basically code blocks or logic blocks that you create one, and then you drag it in, and you'll attach it to whatever entity or object you want to use it with. Then up here next will be entities. Oh yeah, I don't have a scene open to open the entities panel. Sorry, I got to open a scene to do that. We'll come back to that then. Same with scene objects. I have to have that open in order to get to it. Tools, terrain. So under the terrain, when I open that up, I can either, you have to come over here to scene, and then you can open a scene or create a new scene. I'm just going to create a new scene, and what are we going to call this scene? And we'll call it Small Hill 1. And then right here you see 1 hectare by 1 hectare. Just as a reminder that every world grid space is 1 hectare by 1 hectare. So now we'll create that. So here we go. So now the first thing you're going to see is the standard mouse moving around with the green cursor, right? The green brush window. Come over here to terrain. So we've created that, and what that does is that creates a mesh, and I'll just turn this off so you can see right there. Basically dirt, right? Creates a mesh, and then there's this overlay, which is actually 2 overlays. So the purple overlays are 10 meters by 10 meters. The red overlays are 1 meter by 1 meter. Because this is a hectare, you've got 100 meters by 100 meters in size. So 10 across by 10 tall. That's how big your working space is. And now it looks a little bit skewed here just because how the camera angle is. The perspective on the camera angle distorts how they look, but they actually are true measurements of that size when you get to working with them. And if I go to this view here, you can kind of see it better. The grids are a bit aligned more better, right? So I'll turn that back off again. Okay, so now we've got our grid on and we're ready to actually do something with it. And here's our north indicator showing us that that way is north. So I added this north indicator because when you're lining these up to your world grid, you're going to want to be designing your terrain in order to line up to the world grid. So we're just going to do something super simple here. We're not going to really get into anything in depth. We'll do that at a later date. But I'm just going to show you here. So, but here you choose your mode once you're on the terrain tab, because the scene tab is where you save everything, blah, 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 right? Terrain tab. So raise, smooth, ramp, paint, terrain, paint, water. So this is a mesh that when you save it out, it does generate a height map. So if you make any changes, you have to save it out again. It also saves out a thumbnail PNG file for the world grid to use. So it's 100 pixels by 100 pixels. Not that it really matters, but just so you know what's going on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly just go here. I'm going to make the brush as big as I can. Turn this strength up pretty big. Hardness flat versus peak. I'm going to bring it fairly flat here. And then I'm just going to paint this hill. And now you'll see, because I'm all one terrain here, or all one texture, that it's getting a little bit more tricky to see what's going on. So what I'm going to do, so I'm just going to rotate a bit more, bring this a bit higher here. Now one trick I'm doing, because I haven't figured out how I'm going to address it yet, is I'm trying not to paint right to an edge, because I don't want to have my meshes deformed in a hole for the character to walk through when you go down, because they're going to be butting up against each other. So that may come down to just a design issue. I really don't know. I'm going to have to think more about that as I go along, but I need to be able to get test playing in first before I can do that. So, all right, we're pretty high here, I think. Let me just zoom out a bit and rotate. Yeah, we're not that high. Okay, now I want to just go to smooth a bit. And then I want to turn the strength of my smooth down, leave my brush size up, leave my hardness in the middle, and I just want to quickly go over that once there. Okay, cool. That should look pretty good. Yeah, that's doable. I think we'll be able to work with that. Now what I want to do is I want to do a ramp, and I want to turn my brush size down. We're going to make it 6 meters in size. And go to here, and then I'm just going to go out to there. Oh, nope. Yeah, we'll do that. So what I didn't do was adjust my flat. I want it pretty flat here. Now I'll do that again. There we go. So if this is all the way this way, you have a really sharp peak. If it's all the way this way, you have a much flatter surface. So you can see there it's a little flatter, a little easier to walk up. And I'm also going to take that this way a bit more now. There we go. That's just a little flatter. But it's hard to see, right? So you can't really see what's going on. You can see there's a bit of a walkway up there. You got a bit of a hill. And then the other thing I want to do here is I just want to go, I want to lower. So I'm going to go to raise, turn on lower. And then right here, I'm just going to go a little bit here. There we go. Don't need anything major. Smooth. There. Okay. Now I want to paint the ground so we can actually see what's going on, right? Because right now we can toggle this on and off to see what we're doing. We still can't see that great, right? So now we've got our different palettes here. So what I'm going to do is by default is this palette here or this dirt swatch. Now these are all textures that I've added and they are pretty good. They're not 100% seamless, but they're close. And because of how this paints out, I don't necessarily need them to be. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take a little bit of this dirt. Actually, I'll go grass. And I'm going to go, and I'm just going to paint all along this. Bring that over this way. Rotate this over this way. I don't need to get too crazy. This is just a demo. And then go this a bit. I'm going to turn my blend down a bit here. So I just want to do a little bit of patchiness as we come in. Now I'm going to change over to a different one. There. And then up top, we're just going to flatten that out a bit here at the top. And then there, something like that. And we'll take some of this dirt, turn my blend down. Alright, I'll just paint some more green around the base of this side here. Just a little bit blending in there. I think I want it a little bit sharper at the bottom here. Paint a little bit of this up here. Oh, I forgot to turn my blend down on that one. With the darker colors, you want the blend on a little less than you do up at the top. Alright. Good enough. All right. So now, turn that off. Now we can actually get a better look here. We can kind of see that water's kind of flattened out. So I want to go raise, lowers on. There we go. All right. And then I want to smooth that again. Okay, so now I can paint a little bit of water in there, but you can see as I zoom in here, it's actually looking pretty good. You know, we got some rocks and stuff. The normal maps are popping. You got your dirt underneath it. You got some darker dirt stains happening. We've got the, rotate that up, zoom it in here. There's your ramp to walk up to the mountain on. Nice safe passage up the little hill. But now we need a little bit of water in there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to change this over here to paint water. Now for water, what we've got right now is we've got two brushes. So we could paint two different colors of water in if we want to. And we can adjust the strength and the brush size, etc., etc. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to brush A right now. And it's just on river slow. So I'm going to just change that to pond. And I'm just going to paint a nice little pond there. There we go. We have a nice little pond. And so what I can do now is if I want, I can come down here. I can change the transparency, make the water really see-through, which is sometimes good when you're painting it because it follows the shape of the land, which water doesn't really do unless you're like painting a creek or something. So if you actually paint up on an edge or something and you need to clear it, then you can actually come down here. Where is it here? Erase, turn erase on, and you can actually just kind of bring that away from that edge just a little bit, right? There we go. Now we got a little bit more of a there. Now we're following the contour a little bit better. We're pretty flat over that space we flattened out, and we got a little bit of a pond happening, right? So now, what if you don't like that water? So I was showing the transparency. So you could change the color. So I can come into here. What if we want it there? There, we have purple water now, right? Blue, light blue, teal, green, whatever you want. You can do any color you want. So I'm going to go, though, with a it's a nice little blue pond, so I'm just going to go with a color about like that. There, that looks pretty good. And just click off of it. No, sorry, didn't mean to right click. So then we could change. I'm going to turn the transparency up just so you can see the actual full effects of the water here. So you can see the ripple and stuff. So this is a shader mask. And so there's two of them. We have two brushes that you can use. A and B, so that in a hectare you're not limited to just one type of water to paint. You can actually paint two. So if I wanted to go over here to brush B, grab my swamp. Oh, I have erase on, sorry. There we go. We got some swamp water bubbling. Right? Erase that again because I don't actually want it here. Alright, so we're back onto A. And so now what I want to do is I could change the ripple speed. I don't know if you can see that adjusting, but it's moving a lot more now. I could change the ripple magnitude. I could make it much bigger, more like an ocean wave. And I could change the flow speed, like if there's a creek or something. You can see it's really rushing. I can also tile it, so we're at 4 now. So we can really tile it small if we want. All depends on what you want to do and what effect you're looking for. So I'm going to put it at about 8, 9. That looks pretty good. And then you can also change the angle. So if I want to make it flow whichever direction. Now this isn't like a 4 corners. This is actually 100 or a 360 degree rotation to set your angle on the slider. So just be aware of that because it doesn't feel natural, but you get used to it. So anyway, we're just going to go like that. And I actually down that scale size a bit to there. Magnitude down, speed down, because it is just a pond. There we go. Flow speed. Very so slightly. Let's take that to 2. There. We don't need much movement. Just a little bit of movement. We can have a little bit more ripples. And then because it's a pond, we'll go a little more transparent. Alright, so basically there we go. That's the idea. That's the scene we built. We painted it out. So now we scroll back up to the top again. Go to scene. And then we save our scene. Alright. So now we can close the scene and we can reopen it, assign it to a world grid. But what I'm going to do is just close this down to show you the next item instead. So we're going to go here now. Next is entities. So entities, you have to have a scene because they're placeables. So there'll be NPCs, mobs, and players. None of that logic is set up yet. It's just a placeholder. But I have set up logic for scene objects. So in scene objects, you can see over on the left side, it's got no object placed. Select an object to place. Assets, nothing here yet. I haven't flushed that out. I do have functions and I do have effects. So say I want, I'll take this audio effect and I'll place it right there over the water. Okay, so now what I can do is I can come down here and I can select a sound. Now it's just music, right? Play when scene starts. No. Yeah, sure. Play when scene starts. That's fine. Play when enter area. Play scene starts and repeat. We want the repeat because it's going to be like a brook or some bird sounds or something. So you're going to want to put that there. Now, if I zoom in on that, you can see that that is a cube more or less aligned, centered to the grid. You can move them up or down however you want. With the position here, I'm going to go right there. Perfect. That's exactly what we want. Bang. So we've got a little sound. Now I'll show you on the functions some other stuff. So block water. Since we've got water, if you don't want a player to go in there, what you might do is block this off. Now in a lot of games you can just place down a block and then place down another block, place down another block, so on and so forth. But what I decided to do here is place these down and then I can just go into the position, into the size. Don't need it full size. We're just going to lower that down one. And then you can adjust the position as well. So I'm just going to change that one to there and there, and then I'll make that just a little bit longer here. There. And now what that'll be, I mean, it's not perfect, right? But you could add another block here if you wanted to, or make it bigger. But basically that will say, unless you're a water vehicle or able to have a swimming skill, you can't go in the water. So you can set up conditions for that. And as you can see from this angle, I've got the audio handler sticking out more. So I'm just going to select the audio handler here. And I just want to make it taller, actually, because I want it easy enough to, I haven't implemented drag and move yet, but I'm going to do that. But for now, these toggles allow me to play around positioning things and making sure that what I apply stays. The other thing is the collision blocks. So if you want somebody to be able to collide with something, like you already can collide with the terrain because it's a height block. But say you had a little house here and you didn't want the guy to walk through it, or say a rock, then I could place the collider down. Grab another one. Maybe I got another rock here. Bang. And again, you can change the size on those, make them whatever you want, make them as tall as you want, as short as you want, and you can change those. So in a lot of games like the Intersect game engine, RGP tools, I think RGP Maker, things like that, you block off the areas with individual grids and you can't change the size. Well, here you're able to really change those sizes, which makes for less shapes. They're all just six-sided objects for the collision detection, and if you don't have to put down 100 of them, but you can put down, say, 10 of them, that's going to be a lot less for the computer to process. So this is all part of, one, making the job easier for the developer to block things out. Two, making things easier for the engine in order for that traffic that flows back and forth. Now the other thing you're going to see over here is I can collapse these down. So there's an audio trigger in the scene object, there's water blocks in the scene object, there's collision blocks in the scene object. So that saves a lot of space, and you can, when you're working with things, you can keep them down. You can also change the name on them, right? Like, so if I select this one here, there, that one's called collision block 1, right? Oh, I put the one in the there. Or not. What did I do? I don't know what I did. Backspace K1. Didn't want me to put the one at the end for some reason. There it is. It was just me being silly on the keyboard. My keyboard's kind of up and tucked out of the way because my cat likes to come up here. So, all right. So then, now that's all good and dandy. So now we can save that scene. Now this, you won't see in the final version. This is for me making sure that everything saves out and telling me how big that scene is at the end of the day. This scene entirety right now with all the shaping and textures and everything is only 3.2 megs. So that's the other thing, is I'm trying to keep things as small as I possibly can. And I'm trying to keep it user friendly so that you know what you're putting down, everything's easy, it's just all workable. Eventually these might even be drag and drop, drag them onto the screen, but for now it's click and place, which works. I'm trying to keep it clean, I'm trying to keep the scripts as clean as I can. So even right now, a couple of my JavaScript files are over 1,000 lines long. So, and I've been breaking every function out into separate JavaScript files because it's super important for me to be able to not break the whole engine if I'm just working on one thing and get it wrong. So anyway, that's saved. So now what we've got to do is I'll close that out. You got to go back in here to terrain to close the scene. So that just closed the tab, but here we go. So that's saved. So now I'm going to go close scene. Okay, now I'm going to go tools, world grid. And now I'm going to go, let's say this one, and we're going to go here, Small Hill 1. And there you can see, I'll zoom in a bit, but there is Small Hill 1, all laid out. And this little bit of grid lining you see, that's simply because my textures aren't perfectly seamless. That's not the grid overlay being rendered. But there's the little pond on the water, there's the hill with the top of the hill, there's the ramp going up the hill, so you can kind of see where you're at. Now, of course, that doesn't make sense next to this ocean, but, you know, c'est la vie. So then I can close that down, and basically, that's where we're at right now. So I'm just going to switch back over here to my main camera. That is an overview on where I'm at. You've got a good idea how this tool set's working. This video has gone on for a very long time, so I'm going to end it here. But in the next one, I'm hoping to get some more functionality done and get being able to place down objects like trees, rocks, buildings, etc. into the scene. So I'm hopefully doing that one in my next video. I don't know when it'll be. It takes time to put all this together. Have a great day, and I will see you in the next one.